Most of my videos don't get many views. Some get 10, some get 20, some get a couple of hundred if I'm lucky, you know. And I could come on here and pretend everything is growing perfectly, the numbers are flying, and it all feels like it's going to plan. But that wouldn't be true. You know, the truth is I'm in the quiet stage. The stage where you're uploading, improving, trying, thinking, learning, you know, but there still isn't much proof that this is going to work. You know, and I think that stage is worth talking about. You know, I think the quiet stage is where most people quit, and not because they are weak, not because they don't care enough, but because the silence can start to feel like a verdict, you know. You can put effort into something, you post it, you wait, and then basically nothing happens. You know, there's no big response, no viral moment, no huge views, no massive growth, no obvious sign that the thing you're doing is actually working. And I think if you're not careful, you can turn the silence into a story. You can start thinking to yourself, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe nobody cares. Maybe I've missed my chance, you know. Maybe I should stop before I embarrass myself. And I completely understand all of this. You know, when you've put work into something and the response is quiet, it can feel like the world is giving you the answer. For me personally, I see things a little bit differently, and I'm starting to see things a little bit differently. You know, I think low views in the early stages don't always mean it isn't working. Sometimes it just means it hasn't been found yet. You know, and those two things are completely different. You know, something not working means the message isn't landing. The idea isn't strong enough. The execution needs to improve. Something not being found yet simply means the right people haven't seen it. The algorithm hasn't tested it properly. The consistency hasn't compounded. You know, the body of work isn't big enough yet. And I guess the only way to really find out which one is true is to just keep going long enough to get better evidence. And this is exactly what I'm trying to do. You know, I've uploaded every day for around 35 days now, long form videos. Not because every video is amazing, and not because the numbers are where I want them to be, certainly not. But because I understand that this quiet stage is part of the process, you know. The low views, the awkward stage, the nobody really knows you exist yet stage. The stage where you're still figuring out your voice, your style, your titles, thumbnails, message and audience. You know, you can't skip this stage. You can't skip the beginner stage. You can't skip the reps. It's like training in the gym. To get to an elite level of strength, you have to be a novice level of strength at some point, unless you're a genetic freak, of course. But yeah, you can't skip the part where it feels like you're talking to an empty room, essentially. You have to earn your way through it. And this, like I said, applies to everything that you're going to do, whether it's building your body, building a business, building a channel, building a skill, building a better life. At the start, the effort usually feels, you know, much bigger than the result, and that's because it is. You know, you train for weeks and barely look any different. You post for months and hardly anyone watches. You paint for hours and still don't know if the work is good. You know, you start a business and only a few people notice. You try to change your life, and from the outside it looks like nothing's happened. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening, essentially. You know, it just means the results haven't caught up with you yet, haven't caught up with the reps. And this is the part I have to remind myself of frequently. You know, because if you only keep going when the numbers are good, you're not really committed to the process. You're committed to being rewarded, which I get as well. You know, rewards matter, views matter, growth matters, money matters, results matter for sure. And I'm not pretending that they don't. I want the channel to grow. You know, I want the videos to reach more people. I want the work to matter. I want my artwork, fitness, coaching, talking videos, all of it to build into something real. I also know that I need to make sure every video proves, I need to make sure that I don't get trapped in the idea that every video needs to prove the whole thing is working. Because if I do that, I'll just burn out. One video can't carry too much pressure. You know, one upload doesn't decide your future. one low view day doesn't mean the dream is dead, you know. One quiet week doesn't mean you're wasting your time. Sometimes it's just another rep, you know. And that's how I'm trying to see things. Every video is a rep at speaking, a rep at thinking clearly, a rep at talking to camera, you know, a rep at packaging an idea up and putting it out there in the cosmos, you know, a rep at becoming less afraid of being seen, you know, a rep at becoming less affected when hardly anyone watches it, you know, and all these things matter. You know, even if the views are low, I'm changing. I'm getting better at talking to camera. I'm learning which ideas feel real, you know, I'm learning what people respond to. I'm learning how to make thumbnails. I'm learning how to keep showing up when the results aren't immediate, you know. And maybe the real reward of this stage is that learning process, essentially, not the numbers. The person you become while the numbers are still low is a meaningful development and growth that you undertake. The quiet stage tests something important, you know. It tests whether you actually want the thing or whether you only want the applause, you know. It tests whether you can keep going without constant validation. It tests whether you can improve without being praised, you know. It tests whether you take the work seriously before the world does. And I think this is where a lot of people lose. They don't lose because they had no talent. They don't lose because, you know, they need proof that they are full of character. They lose because they needed proof too early that it would work. You know, they needed the views too early. They needed the money too early. They needed everyone to understand too early. You know, they need the outside world to validate and confirm the thing before they had even built the thing. Sometimes you have to keep believing in the work before the evidence is obvious. Not blindly. You still have to improve. You still have to increase skill. You know, you still have to be honest. You still have to look at what's working and what isn't. You still have to analyse. But you can't let early silence become the reason you stop. Because if you stop too early, you'll never find out. You know, you'll never find out whether the next video would have actually connected. You know, you never find out whether the 100 rep will have got you to that new PR. You know, you'd never find out that the message that you're putting out there just needed more time, more clarity, and more consistency. You know, and I don't want to be someone who stops in the middle. That's the truth. I don't know exactly when things will shift. Maybe it's one video away, maybe it's 50 videos away, maybe it's 100 videos away. But I know that I definitely won't stop. And it definitely won't happen if I stop. So I keep uploading. Not because the views are amazing, not because I'm building, you know, a complete Hollywood production. Obviously not. I'm just talking straight into camera. But I'm building the channel this could become in a year. I'm building the skill. I'm building the evidence. I'm building the habit. I'm building the person who doesn't just stop because the room is quiet. So I would say if you're building something right now, whether it's a channel, a business, a hobby, a new skill, a better life, and the early results are smaller than you'd hoped, don't take the silence as a verdict, you know. Take it as the stage that you're in, the quiet stage, the middle stage, the stage where most people disappear. And if you can keep going there, you can give yourself a chance. Keep improving, keep showing up, keep learning, you know, keep making the next version better than the last one. Although that's sometimes tricky, I know, so sometimes maintaining is just okay. Because the people essentially who win are not always the most talented, they're not always the most confident, and they're certainly not always the most charismatic. They're not always the ones who get lucky early. A lot of the time they're just the ones who didn't stop when nobody was watching. And right now, maybe nobody is watching, but I'm still uploading. And I'm not going nowhere. I should say as well, subscribe to the channel if you like these sort of videos. Talking videos for now. Discipline, training, creativity, mindset, self-improvement. Subscribe. I'm uploading daily. See you in the next one.